Welcome, Avatar. Welcome again to the Bowtied Mara YouTube channel. Today, we'll be doing a deep dive into real estate in Argentina. So if you're dreaming of owning a piece of Argentina, whether it's a cozy apartment in Buenos Aires, it can be in Palermo or Recoleta, a vineyard in Mendoza, or ranch in Patagonia, you've come to the right place. We'll be discussing all the ins and outs and do's and don'ts of buying property, searching for property, and we'll be diving into the main ways to search for property in Argentina and by using which websites. I'll show you the top websites and share pro tips on using filters to narrow your search and explain key concepts you need to know to make smart decisions. By the end, you'll be ready to start your property hunt with confidence. I'll also be going over my blog and some of the real estate updates I give there. So make sure to subscribe there so you're always up to date with the latest updates. I write an article about once every month and a half, more or less, with an update on the Buenos Aires property market. So you always have the latest data in terms of prices, neighborhoods, the return on investment in terms of Airbnbs in Buenos Aires. We'll also be deep diving into that a little bit. And I'll be showing you the do's and don'ts there of, if it makes sense to actually rent it out on Airbnb or more for long-term rentals. We'll be going over that as well. So yeah, we're going to break it down into a couple chapters, and I'll be sharing my screen and going over some of the websites that I regularly use in order to find what I'm looking for. Let's dive in. So right here I have the real estate section on my blog. So if you want to check that out, every single month more or less I write another update on the latest pricing for Buenos Aires mainly. And this is also the place where you can find the first two Buying Property in Argentina Part 1 and Part 2 guides that explain the whole roadmap for buying property in Argentina. Now things are currently changing a little bit in terms of money flows, etc., with Milei. So let's hope that becomes easier in terms of getting money here and getting money out. But so far, one of the most important things to remember whenever it comes to Buenos Aires or Argentina for that matter is that most property will always be denominated in US dollars. Basically, it is a store of value for a lot of Argentines. So most real estate for sale will be listed in USD, and then long-term rentals can be in either USD or in pesos. So that is something important to keep in mind because it really does, make it easier, especially for people from outside of Argentina. You don't need to deal with exchange rates, etc. And it's pretty much a dollarized economy when it comes to real estate. Another thing that's important to keep in mind is that most real estate here is not mortgaged. So basically, whenever you see real estate, you will have to chip that full amount in all at once. So that's a big difference with a lot of other real estate markets where there are properties that you can buy with a mortgage, but here it's mortgages are only for locals. And they are very scarce. It is getting better now, but it's still, pretty hard to get a mortgage, and you need a long financial track record, etc. I go over the mortgages and how they work in one of my articles here as well. Let's see, it's the UVAs. It kind of explains why prices will keep going up as long as this is in play. So that one might be good to check out. But now, first, let's go over the overall real estate market in Buenos Aires. So in this article, I basically go over the low point in real estate. 2023 was the final low point where I was able to snatch up a couple properties. Luckily, it was after a 6-year downturn, and in real terms, in USD, prices have come down about 50% from the peak, which was in 2018. So right now they're recovering, but they're still, not at that 2018 level. Nominally, they might be in some cases, or even higher. But in most cases, when you factor in inflation, etc., they're still very far removed from that 2018 peak. Now we are moving into the correct direction in terms of prices. With in some neighborhoods like Palermo and Recoleta, we've seen increases of 20% plus year on year. So it's definitely picking up speed right now. But yeah, let's go over some of the neighborhoods that are interesting to look at whenever you want to buy property. And one thing that I always mention to people is like, oh yeah, is it worth the effort, etc. It really depends. Like if you are very much a fan of Argentina, or you live here, or you plan on living here, or you plan on having a pied-à-terre, in those cases it makes sense to buy property here. I think if you see it more as just an investment vehicle, it kind of depends. You really need to have a right partner on the ground, and maybe some bigger project where a lot of foreign investors dive in, because otherwise, you might as well just be buying ADRs on the New York Stock Exchange for Argentina, and just lift off the economic boom with Milei that way. In terms of real estate, it's not that quick. So you have to take into account that your money will be stuck in Argentina for a while. It's not a liquid market, even though it's getting better. There's no quick flips here. So I think that's an important consideration to make. So even though you can buy in the low, you will have that money invested in Argentina for a while, probably. Of course, during that whole time, you can still rent it out on the short-term rental market, etc., and make it okay return. The returns right now are not super great. It's like 5-6% if you factor everything in. And sometimes, depending on the neighborhood, long-term rentals make more sense in terms of returns right now in the current market scenario. So yeah, let's just see this for a little bit. Here we have Buenos Aires. The city of Buenos Aires is this part here. It's important to understand that the city of Buenos Aires is autonomous with the mayor Jorge Macri. It's a completely separate state, so to say, or province. And then you have the province of Buenos Aires, which is all this, basically bigger than France. And that's like a separate province. So they're both called Buenos Aires, but they're not the same jurisdiction. So Buenos Aires ends here, the city. This is marked because it is also very popular, because it's this whole strip up into Tigre, and even further now, Benavides, etc., is also becoming more popular. This is about 45-minute drive. San Isidro, a little bit closer, 30 minutes. And then you have Olive, Vicente Lopez. These are popular parts of the province of Buenos Aires because there's a lot of mansions and really nice houses here that most of the international CEOs, etc., they live in Martinez and La Lucila, like in this whole area. And they just drive to the center or just work from home there. And then, of course, like some of the most popular neighborhoods in Buenos Aires for foreigners to buy is basically this whole strip here in the north. So you have Núñez, Belgrano, Colegiales, Palermo, Recoleta, and Retiro. And this part here is one of the most expensive square meter prices in the whole of Latin America. This is Puerto Madero. Personally, I don't really feel the vibe there. It's pretty generic in terms of, it's all new buildings. It doesn't really have the same soul as you would find in Recoleta or other parts of Buenos Aires. But to each their own, and there are people that really love living there. One thing that is nice is the amount of parks, etc., that you have here. But you can also find a lot of parks here in Palermo. Upcoming neighborhoods are basically Villa Ortúzar, Chacarita, and Villa Crespo. And then further down, it's more like middle class, working class, not working class, but like upper middle class right now, like Almagro, Caballito. And then the further you go down, like there it becomes like Villa Soldati, Nueva Pompeya, etc. This is like basically, it's not a no-go zone, but it's not very popular for short-term rentals, for tourism, etc. Like tourists wouldn't like really visit this part of the city. Parque Patricios has been pumped really hard by subsidies, etc., to just kind of lift this whole area up, and it has become a lot nicer. It's very well connected with the subway, etc., and Barracas as well. But there's still some kind of like gnarly parts that are not that great. And if you're looking for property to rent out eventually, or I would prefer like this strip, or even like the center, so Microcentro, etc. There's still a lot of tourists that would book like right around the obelisk, just because they see, okay, the obelisk. We have, Florida. We have some stuff here. We can go to the Congreso, Avenida de Mayo, and then I can also go to Puerto Madero. And, here's some more historic stuff. And I'm also close to San Telmo. So, this still has like a pretty decent pull in terms of, tourists booking something here. But the bulk will probably go to Palermo nowadays. It used to not be that popular, but it has really come up in the last 10 to 15 years as a tourist destination. But in terms of visiting historic sites, etc., Palermo has a little bit less, but there's just so many restaurants and things to do that it's still a great place to stay. Recoleta is way more traditional and has like really old, nice buildings, etc. So that has a little bit of both, and it's also relatively close to all the other things that people want to see. Now, if you look at long-term rentals, you can widen your reach a lot more. Like short-term rentals are really maybe nowadays Belgrano as well. Becoming more popular, but it will mainly be this kind of strip, and then maybe here in this little circle right here, and the rest will mainly be long-term rentals, some short-term rentals as well, but you won't be booked like for the occupancy rates will be lower, unless of course you can find some expat who wants to live in a more like residential neighborhood like Villa Crespo. It's still, if from Avenida Corrientes here all the way to Palermo, it's not even 10 blocks, and this part is they call it Palermo Queens because everything is being converted into Palermos, just for sales purposes. It's very close. I mean, I walk this all the time, and it's like seriously not even 30 minutes, so it's still very close. So for people that want to stay like 3 to 6 months, it's still a great option. Chacarita, Villa Crespo, and Colegiales, they are becoming more and more popular for those kind of neighborhoods, and the square meter price is still more reasonable than Palermo. Chacarita is coming up. I actually bought in this neighborhood. It's becoming a lot more popular, especially closer to Palermo, to this border. So here you basically have the trifecta of Colegiales, Palermo, and Chacarita. And they also call this area like Chacalermo. And Yeah, a lot of gastronomy and very nice restaurants and bars are popping up in Chacarita. It's also nice, for me personally, because I've seen most of Palermo, and like having this nice park here, etc., is very nice, and it's also located very strategically with the subway. So if you're in Palermo, it kind of depends where you are. But if you're here, for example, you're like in the middle of nowhere in terms of subway. So if you're living here for a longer period of time and you don't have a car, it can be like annoying to have to take Ubers and taxis all the time. Not that they're expensive, because they're not. But it kind of depends on if you want to use public transportation or not. I always like it. It kind of depends on where I need to go. Sometimes I do take Ubers, and other times I just take the Metrobus as well, which is very quick. Okay, but yeah, let's go back to our guide. So here, that's the map. So yeah, let me know in the comments if you have any questions about specific neighborhoods. But I think that stretch is probably where you want to look. Now I won't go. I will do another video just over the ways to get money in and how that all works, because that kind of changed right now as well. Now that they lifted the cepo, which is the currency restrictions, so there's less capital controls now, and it's easier to get money in and out. But it will still be harder to get that money in cash here, and there's like multiple ways to do that. Because that's also something that you won't see in most other countries. Basically, most property, 90% plus, is paid in cash, like not a bank wire or whatever. It's paid in cash, and some property owners will have a bank account in the U.S. or in Europe, and then it will be easier because then you can just arrange like, okay, I'll send you the money there, and you just pay the taxes here locally, and that's it. So the money never touches Argentina. That's the easiest way, but of course, not all property owners will have a bank account in abroad. So in most cases, you'll still need to get the money here some way, and stable coins are becoming a more regular option as well. But yeah, that's something also important to take into consideration. Now let's see the type of properties. Let's see, I have, let's see here. I think pozo is an important concept to understand. Comprar en pozo is basically a construction project. So this is one of the few options that you have where you can actually have installments, and it kind of depends on the builder or the construction company, what kind of installments they have. Usually it's set up in a way where you pay 30 or 40% upfront in dollars, and then the rest is spread out over the remaining time of the project. So it can be 18, 24, 36 installments depending on how big the building is, and you'll pay those with the remainder of the 60 or 70% is converted into pesos, and those monthly installments, they get adjusted by the CAC rate, which is the construction company index inflation. So some other companies also allowed fixed USD installments, but lately because of it's still an inflationary economy, we still have 40 to 60% inflation, and the construction costs are very high. So most construction companies will not give you a fixed dollar installment plan anymore. So yeah, that is something to take into account. Still, I mean, these kind of plans like the pozos, you need to really do due diligence on the developer, just so you know that they won't screw you over. There's been a lot of blow-ups in the past where they wouldn't finish a building, etc. So yeah, just make sure it's a very high quality developer and that they've been around for at least 10 plus years. See their track record, latest completed projects, I would say, because there's some there have been some scammers that they would just use a construction company. They would buy some plots here and there, and they will never ever finish anything. So, but people would still see, oh yeah, it's almost finished, and they would chip in a new project that would never start, for example. So, and that is something to take into account whenever it comes to pozos. I also write about the prices on a monthly or bi-monthly basis. So here you can see, for example, what the square meter price does, the average now for the whole city. And these, let's see, the blue line is estrenar, so properties that are just coming on the market, that have just been finished in construction and that are sold right after inauguration. Pozo is what I mentioned just now, which is basically the construction still underway. Now, as you can see, these diverge like bigly versus the general index and the used index. So here you can see used properties in most neighborhoods will still have competitive pricing if you compare it to very new constructions. Now, the reason for that is that these are just very high in demand because older buildings, they don't have as many amenities. They won't have like swimming pools or gyms, etc. And, the younger people now, they all want those amenities. So there's just been a huge spike in demand for newer buildings that are under construction. They're also a way to speculate on the market. This might be interesting if you're considering this, which is something a lot of Argentines do here. They basically invest in a pozo. So they chip in the 30%, 40%, then they keep paying installments, and right before the estreno, so right before the launch on the market, they sell their contract to somebody else. That way they do not pay taxes, basically, because, technically they should, so I'm not saying this is like A-okay. But what happens in practice, because the unit is not finished yet, it's not registered in the general city registry as like an existing property. So since that's not the case, they don't have the final title deed. So basically they just sell the IOU, or the sale contract with the construction company. They sell that to somebody else, and that person doesn't have to wait all this time. But in the meanwhile, the appreciation has been, usually around 15 to 20%. So when you get in early, up until the time it finishes, the square meter price tends to increase by that amount. So, you took the risk because you entered early. They could have not finished the project, etc. So yeah, it's like 10, 15% that you make on that, and then you just use that money and chip into a new project. And basically they hop around like that, and they never actually get the finished property. But it's just a way of investing in real estate where you never really have to deal with the finalized property or deeds, etc. So that's also a really popular way for locals to invest in real estate, is through that way. So they never really get it on their name in the registry or for tax purposes, but they just flip-flop between projects. But of course, if you really want to have a property, then you won't do that. But it is important to see this difference. Like, this is a really big difference. So if you look at newer construction builds in Palermo, for example, right now, out of the top of my head, it's, square meter prices can be around like 4,700 per square meter versus, the average of 4,000 on the secondary market. So it's like a pretty big difference, which is interesting because, it does indicate that there's a lot of deals still in the used space, especially if it's a little bit torn down and you have to do some stuff to make it livable. That can be a nice differentiator. Like I've done that myself. Construction like here. This used to be the property. I basically joined two peajes, which is peaje means propiedad horizontal, so horizontal property. And what they are is basically you have a hallway coming in from this street, and from the hallway there's 2, 3, 4, 5 units bordering the hallway as you walk inside the street block, basically. So this is here. You can see a door that basically borders the hallway. The hallway goes all the way here. Behind you, you have another property, another owner. Behind that, you have another one, etc. So the only thing that connects all the properties is the hallway. And from a registry standpoint, that is like a single plot. So the problem here is with the peajes, if you want to have a building permit, for all the things we did here, we basically technically would have needed a building permit. But since the city of Buenos Aires is kind of redacted in terms of what you need for this in order to get the building permit or the construction permit, is you need the plans of every single unit that borders the hallway with the how it was before and how it is now. Now the thing is, every single neighbor, they've all added and done additions, etc., and nobody has the same home anymore. So it's practically impossible to ever get an okay for doing remodeling, etc., on a bigger scale if it's really constructional. So what ends up happening is basically you just start the work and just do it, and then if I ever want to sell this, there's some square meters that are not declared in the deed, so those will probably just be sold outside of the contract, which is also very common, so good to know. But yeah, here you can see the before and after, basically, of the joining two units. So two bordering units on the hallway, we joined those and constructed another dormitory and bathroom upstairs, and connected everything with an internal staircase instead of external like this. So yeah, getting money in and out, I'll do another video on that. Selling a property, there's some tax changes now that you actually have to pay less taxes on property that you sell, so that's good. Millet actually took that off. But now let's look at some of the portals. So here we have Zona Prop. This is definitely the number one platform to look to, to buy and sell. So anything big will be listed here. So let's see. Let's just go to the homepage. So, and here you can see, where it is, the location, the type of property, how many rooms. This is another important thing to mention. In Argentina, the rooms are counted separately. So if you have a studio, that is a monoambiente. And if you have a one-bedroom apartment, it's a dos ambientes. So it's 2 rooms. If you have a 2-bedroom apartment, it's 3 rooms because they count the living room as one room. So that's important to keep in mind. So you can see the characteristics, etc. And then here in otras operaciones, here you have emprendimientos, which is basically the pozo thing that we just went over. So here you can see all the under construction and when it's finished. So if you're interested in newer buildings and you want to see, please always look at the construction company and their track record and make sure that they finished stuff. I mean, I make it sound like it's super common. It's not that common, but it does happen, and I've actually come across a few of those pozos that were just never finished, and people they have their money stuck and they just can't get it out. So it's better just to do some more due diligence and just to be 100% sure. But mainly you'll be looking at Capital Federal, and then you can look at different neighborhoods. Of course, you want to buy. As far as I know, this site is not in English, so you're going to have to practice some of your Spanish here. Here you can also choose emprendimientos, which is the pozo, so it's basically developments, the amount of rooms, etc., and price. Now let's just go into some random. Let's see. I have some. Just one listing. I'm not very interested in this one, but I just wanted to check this here. Yeah. So in this post, I have some of the daily visualizations for properties. So if they have around 60 plus views within a week on Zona Prop, and you can see that here. So, it's been published for 6 days. It has 20 views. You can sort of say like, okay, if it has more than 60 views within a week, then or daily visualizations. So yeah, so the daily visualizations, if it has more than 60 per day, it usually sells within a week. If it has 30 per day, it takes about a month. And 20, 1 or 2 months, and 10 or less, then it's pretty much stuck on the platform, and it's not really clear when it's going to sell. So in this particular case, it's been published for 6 days. So 20 divided by 6, yeah. So not a whole lot of views yet, but yeah, that's a good indicator to kind of think, okay, like how many people are looking at this, and how likely is it to sell, and do I, feel the pressure or not? If you find something really nice, usually, you have to be quick. This particular Microcentro office space was a post about offices and, how mispriced they are still. And while I was doing this research, I actually found some really nice offices that I wanted to buy, and they were gone within, no time. So there were some other people snatching those up because, yeah, just look at, these weren't particularly nice, but it just to show like, the price levels is just, very, very cheap per square meter in some really prime areas in terms of, the financial district, etc. So yeah, besides a residential office space is also something that could be very interesting in the prime locations, because just imagine, this is basically buying an office somewhere in Tribeca for, next to nothing. So do you think there will still be offices in Buenos Aires in very nice neighborhoods, and especially in the financial district here? Hell yeah. So, that's just another segue. Let's get back. So this is Zona Prop. It's, it's a good, decent website. I know some people are not a fan, but, you can sell, most information will always be here. But you have to take into account that realtors that want to publish here, they do have to pay a fee to list their properties, and not all realtors will do that. So you have this Argenprop as well. It's basically the same thing, but it's just a different website. But the difference here is that on Argenprop, you will find some properties that are not listed on Zonaprop for that last reason that I mentioned. So sometimes you can find stuff here that is not on Zonaprop, and that could actually be a better deal. Or something that just simply is not listed on Zonaprop. As soon as it's on Zonaprop, you can bet your ass it's going to be on Mercado Libre as well, and probably on Argenprop, but if it's just on Argenprop, it might not always be on Sonaprop as well. So that's a big difference. Now, that reminds me that for some property searches, if you're really on the ground here, that's the ideal scenario if you really want to, investigate a certain neighborhood, or you like certain streets, etc. It's always a good idea to just walk around and check local immobiliaria, so local real estate agencies that have like an office there, and because a lot of these listings that they list in their windows, like street facing, you won't find those online because they just, real estate agents are really lazy overall, and many times they will not list a certain property. So in that case, you will only find that property offline, in their listed like in the list of their window. So I could definitely recommend that if you're really interested in a certain neighborhood. There are real estate agencies that specialize just in a certain neighborhood. So just do that, walk around, check real estate realtors there, check their listings in the window, and then you'll see stuff that you will not find online. Solo Dueños is another one. Just look at this. It looks like super 90s. This is basically a website where you can list your property as a property owner, and without a realtor in the middle. I haven't used this a whole lot, but I'm pretty sure you can find some deals here. One thing that I can say is just be aware of potential scams, etc. And I think that this website is probably, people here are definitely not used to dealing with foreigners, which can be a plus, especially if you speak Spanish. And then, of course, we have Mercado Libre, which is basically the LATAM Amazon. It's not, the prime focus is not real estate, but there will be a lot of short-term and properties for sale here that will also be on Sonaprop in most cases. So yeah, this is just still a very good website to look for also farmland, etc. I find Mercado Libre usually has like some interesting listings. There are some specialized listings just for rural properties, so I go over that in this part, like buying property in Argentina part 2. I'll put all these in the YouTube description as well, so you have those, all these links. And let's see, for rural properties, there is like one asterisk, but it doesn't really matter at the moment because none of the provinces reach that level. But basically, Cristina Kirchner, she put a 15% max ownership per province, a max foreign ownership per province in terms of farmland and agriculture, etc. So, by law, none of the provinces can have more than 15% ownership for rural property. So here you can see the total amount of hectares, with Salta having the highest amount in foreign ownership. Many vineyards, etc. there. Misiones is also pretty high. Mendoza, of course, Santa Cruz, and then Buenos Aires, the province. Because let me see here if you can. Yeah, it's not listed separately. City of Buenos Aires. No, but I think this is probably the city of Buenos Aires, not the province. But see, this is one of these examples where you're not 100% sure if they're talking about the city or the province. But yeah, so right now, like the max level, I think is around in Salta is like 6% is owned by foreigners. Milei did change this in his initial ley bases, but it got overruled by the Supreme Court because he wanted to get rid of this law, but the Supreme Court basically ruled that it should still be taken into account. So that is just one thing. And I think there's also within the Ley de Tierras, there's also a note about owning, lakeside property and stuff. So for Bariloche, I think there are some areas where you wouldn't be able to buy because that is still in play. But for this, for cities, this is not important at all. You can just buy whatever you want. And so here with the let's just go over my latest March 2025 overview. So what I usually do here is I just go over the square meter price and the average unit price in the city for a studio, a 1-bedroom apartment, and a 2-bedroom apartment. And basically, we track the what the average price does, a square meter price over time. Then we see these stats about how popular, what type of property, like new or old, is. And what's the price difference, and then here you can see some more of these price differences, etc. And then we go over like the average price per square meter per neighborhood. So here you can really see that Puerto Madero is like the number one, very, very expensive. And it's all aspirational. Basically, it's status games. A lot of politicians, unionists, etc. Mobsters and other people. Of course, also a lot of normal people that have property there and see that as kind of like, oh, look at me, I have my little Puerto Madero condo. But yeah, it's definitely, it stands out versus all the rest. So it's like a really big difference. It's almost 2x versus most of the rest of Buenos Aires. Now Palermo is getting up there. It's getting more expensive. This has definitely gone up from 2,700 to almost 33, and this is the average. So if you look at the average for new builds, it's $1,000 per square meter more. So at least 4,200, and depending on the building, it can be 4,500, 4,700 per square meter if it has all kinds of really, really cool amenities. So I think this is also a pretty good indicator in terms of what kind of neighborhoods would be good for expats. I think most of these come into that, except for Coquelin, like up until number 8. That is probably the cutoff. And then you have some lower ones, which will probably get some better returns in the future, which is, Caballito, I think, is a little bit too outside of the area. It's very centric. A lot of middle class wants to live there. But it's very residential. Villa Crespo is like the next thing very close to Palermo, which gives it a plus in terms of pricing, because it's already like a pretty decent difference, 1K per square meter difference, and it's not that far from Palermo. Mortgage trends. So you can see here the mortgages, it's still very low. But as this goes up and goes closer to these levels, prices will rise in tandem. It's still very low, even if you look at the previous peak of 2018. It's still nothing compared to the 90s, where everybody was basically, able to get a mortgage or buy a home. A lot of people became homeowners in the 90s when the dollar and peso were pegged together. So here you can see the mortgages issued. It is really going up, and I think that trend will continue. That's just something we go over every single month, and there's also some additional information, like maybe some new regulations around Airbnb, etc. And let's see what else we can discuss. No, I think that's about it. The most important things you need to know. Luckily, we're getting rid of all these different dollars, except for well, of course, you're going to get the dollar crypto and the dollar blue will be there because it's for non-official purchases, etc. But very likely all these different dollars will be merged in the near future now that the FX restrictions are lifted by Milei. So that's another positive. Yeah, for our next real estate video, we'll go into the money flows and how that works. But yeah, so far, hope you've enjoyed the video. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, and let me know in the comments if you have any questions about buying real estate in Argentina, and if there's stuff that I didn't cover. I'm pretty sure there is, but yeah, this is just the things that I wanted to go over now. All right, see you later, Anon.